You're on mute, Mark.
Well, we had a bit of an echo there, so right. So, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I think I actually know everyone. I think I've met everybody, and I know you, Gordon, from the Endowments Committee.
Indeed.
So,
Are you happy to start, Chair?
I think we're ready. Is Councillor Flynn joining us? I think he said yesterday he was coming.
Yes, Councillor Flynn did say he would be joining us, but he hasn't joined the meeting just yet.
Okay, well, we'll make a start anyway. We have a few minutes overtime technically. Okay, thanks everyone for waiting till we got all of that sorted. We have apologies notified from Roger Ridley this morning. Are there any other apologies? Not seen any. Does anyone have any declarations of interest in relation to any of today's items? Nope, not seeing anything. Okay, we'll move then to the minute of our last meeting from November. Run through it quickly for accuracy. What in the pack is page 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, are we happy to accept that as an accurate minute? Thank you. Are there any matters arising? I think anything I had probably comes up under other items anyway, but does anyone have any questions or comments? Robert.
Yeah, it's just a quick question on the review of the integration schemes, if we've got a timeline for that.
Can you take that?
I can take that. The timeline is being finalised. It will need to take account of, it will need to go to both the NHS board and the councils, and it's been done across the whole of Forth Valley, so it'll be the 3 councils and the NHS board. It also has to go out to public consultation and then be laid before, will have to come to the IGBs, and it'll need to then be laid before Parliament, and that can take up to 3 months. So I think realistically we're talking about the end of this calendar year, Robert.
Okay,
But I know that there's work being done on the detailed timeline just to make sure everything's mapped out. So we can update I would expect to the next committee there'd be a more accurate timeline than that. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's useful, thank you. Can we move on then to the Strategic Risk Register? Mark, I think you're going to take us through this one.
okay, thank you very much. You've got the papers. You've had the papers in advance, so what I'm planning on doing is I'll just run through what I think are some of the salient points. I'll touch on the integration scheme, which you raised there, Robert, and Patricia has answered, but I'll probably touch on those anyway. Just to highlight, there are no new risks which have been added to the Strategic Risk Register. I'll comment, I suppose, on the number 1 risk, which is the financial sustainability and the fact that the position is actually worse. I think it's worth highlighting that the importance of risk identification and the ongoing assessment, because it highlights the need for the reporting and the identification of any action required to try and mitigate that risk. Just for your information, I would expect that you would know this, but although the financial sustainability risk is reported as having been last reviewed in December 2023, I can assure you that the issue is actually constantly under review, particularly at the moment as we move forward with the preparation production of the business case, but it's a risk and issue which is constantly under review. Section 4.3 provides all of the other risks have remained extant as they were previously. So 4.3 provides a brief summary on each of the risks with a more detailed analysis on each in the Appendix 1 papers which you have in the pack. I will give some additional commentary on risk number 1, the financial sustainability. The summary refers to the 24-25 business case, which I referred to just a moment ago, and an initial gap of some 19 million, for which it's a savings requirement gap. A lot of work was undertaken to identify a range of savings to try and close that gap. And there's an oxymoron, but the draft final business case has only recently been completed. And although the plans and options identified total some 15 million, there's still a residual gap of 4 million, which at the moment would have to be closed by the use of reserves. It's actually just under 4 million. But it is also important to emphasise to all that savings figure of 15 million, a significant proportion of that is actually red risk. So they will be extremely difficult to deliver. But this has been accounted for in terms of our assumptions and in terms of the actual financial pounds delivery and also the timescales. I would also like to draw the committee members' attention to the last paragraph in section 4.3, the bullet point in section 4.3 regarding the management of prisons. There's an extensive summary which highlights the management responsibility of prison healthcare, which has transferred, but the overall responsibility will need to be it will need to go through the full process before it is delegated to the IJB. So I've highlighted in that paragraph the risks associated with that. So there's a lot of work still needs to be done before that is actually formally transferred. I would just like to finally make some comments on the detail in Appendix 1. The SRR1, financial sustainability, as I've referred to earlier on. The risk summary refers to COVID, Ukraine, cost of living, etc. There is one other uncertainty that we're probably all aware of, which is it's not included as per se yet, but that's the possible implications of the uncertainty in the Middle East. And that is largely because of the potential for delays in supply lines through Suez Canal, etc. So I'm just highlighting that as something that we need to be cognizant of. And regarding point 6, the medium-term financial plan currently in place is from 23-24, which is referred. Excuse me a moment, which is referred to in the paper. But I just want, Councillor Flynn has entered the room. Thank you. So I just want to highlight that there has been an updated version from which dates from the 24-25 financial year. So that has been prepared for consideration by the Integration Joint Board, which will be at its meeting on the 22nd of March of this month. As I said, you have the papers. They are hopefully quite detailed. I wasn't proposing to go into any more detail, but I'm happy to take questions on the what I've said.
Thanks, Mark. That's really useful. Yeah, it's no surprise to see financial sustainability very high. I think we know health boards, local authorities, IGBs are all pretty much in the same boat. Indeed, I was at a finance committee in Clacton Stirling just on Wednesday of this week, and similar type gaps, shall we say, in the budget there. So that's similar. The other one that's sitting red is primary care sustainability, and there is a note of some of the work that's going on there in 4.3. So that's good to know. And prisons isn't in as a risk yet because of the work that you mentioned is still ongoing, but at some stage we will need to incorporate that into the risk register. Does anyone else have comments or questions? Robert?
Yeah, it's just around the financial sustainability and the savings that have been identified. Have we got recurring savings, or are we relying on non-recurring savings?
Robert, it's a combination of both. We are aiming for ultimately financial sustainability, which you know the clues in the name, where that it's a balanced position. It's a difficult ask. So that's why there's a lot of work has been undertaken to try and identify systemic changes that will result in genuine expenditure reductions and the assumption of future inflationary uplifts, etc. So it's a combination of both. It's not all non-recurring solutions that merely, if you pardon the expression, kick the can down the road. But so as much as possible, we have very much focused on what I may put as a strategic result rather than purely a kind of sticking plaster.
Okay, thank you, Mark. It's handy to know that it's good to get these documented in every meeting we've got. So when we go to the government to get more money, because they've been bringing this issue up all year.
Absolutely, Robert. Absolutely.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I'll move on to the internal audit plan for 24-25. Anne-Marie, I think you're leading in this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'll do a very quick introduction to myself. So I'm the new Regional Audit Manager taking over from Jocelyn Weil, who's now the Chief Internal Auditor. So I started with FTF at the start of December last year. So I'm very pleased to be here at my first Falkirk IGB Audit Committee meeting. So it's lovely to meet you all. I couldn't make it to the pre-agenda meeting just because I had a pre-existing meeting that I couldn't get out of, so my apologies for that. But Jocelyn was at the pre-agenda meeting, so yeah, so it's lovely to be here. So I will move on to talking about our annual internal audit plan for 24-25. That's on page 30 of your papers. And the paper is here to seek approval of that plan and the related internal audit charter, which is reviewed annually. In terms of the charter, it sets out the purpose, the authority and the responsibility of the internal audit activity and is brought to the committee for its annual review and approval. We note that there have been no changes to highlight to the committee this year compared to last year after the review that was undertaken prior to issuing the document to yourselves. So we note for 24-25, as in the current year, all audit resource will be provided by the FTF audit team with input from Falkirk Council Internal Audit if required. In terms of the internal audit joint working and reporting protocol, which has been referred to previously in previous audit committees, this has undergone a significant review to make it clearer and modernise some of the language within it and to ensure it reflects the best practice in line with the IRAG guidance. This is currently out for consultation with internal audit colleagues and will be presented to the committee in June. So turning to the 24-25 audit plan, It aims to provide the Chief Internal Auditor with sufficient evidence to form an opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of internal controls at the year end. Therefore, when developing the plan, we reviewed the risk register and consulted with the Chief Finance Officer to ensure the plan provides the audit coverage needed based on the IGB's risk environment. And Jocelyn met with Mark a few weeks back to go through that process. So looking at some of the specific audits within the plan, some members, particularly those involved in the Forth Valley side of things, we will be familiar with the internal control evaluation style of audit, which we undertake. We refer to this as the ICE. It's quite a catchy name that we all like to refer to. So we undertake this annually for all our Health Board clients currently. So the ICE covers all areas of governance: corporate, care governance, financial, staff and information governance. And this work provides assurance over the system of internal control partway through the year with the intention of providing any early warning of issues that need to be addressed prior to the year end. And it's a really detailed piece of work and provides a lot of assurance for the bodies that we undertake that work for. The intention is to complete that work around about January, February 2025 to allow any issues to be included within the governance action plan. So in terms of the annual internal audit report work, we will build on the outputs of that ICE, and there will therefore be less need for management input during the busy time of year when they're leading up to their annual accounts process. So in terms of the annual report work, we will focus on the year-end assurances and confirmations that actions from the 24-25 ICE and previous internal audit reports have been actioned. And through that ICE and the standalone audits and the annual report, members will be provided with robust assurance throughout the year on the overall systems of internal control. So finally, turning to the workforce audit that's mentioned in the plan, this audit was deferred from the current year to allow time to action the workforce recommendations around data collection from the 22-23 internal audit annual report. So to conclude, the committee is asked to approve the annual internal audit plan for 24-25, approve the IGB internal audit charter, and we request that the IGB's internal auditors can proceed with the implementation of the approved plan. And that was all I was going to say specifically on the 24-25 plan, and happy to take any questions from members.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Yeah, I think the inclusion of the ICE as a good name will be very useful. It certainly has been in health board circles in terms of capturing a wide range of issues that need attention. So yeah, look forward to seeing that in due course. Any questions or comments, colleagues? Nope. Are we happy then to approve the plan and the charter? Yep, I'm seeing nods, so that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item then is the internal audit progress report. So this will be you again, Anne-Marie.
Yes, so you will be sick of hearing my voice. So again, thank you, Chair. So starting on page 44 of the papers, the progress report is here to provide an update on progress with the IGB audits and the relevant audit from the partner bodies, NHS Forth Valley and Falkirk Council. So related to the final audit from the 22-23 plan, which is strategic planning, the work in this area is concluding and will be presented to the next meeting of the audit committee. Moving to the 23-24 aspects of the plans, we have started a risk management work, which will include a review and commentary on the risk register, and it's Jocelyn, the Chief Internal Auditor, that's going to be leading on that specific part of the audit plan. Field work is ongoing for the audit committee self-assessment, and it is also ongoing for the 23-24 annual report work. Related to both these areas, we'll be shortly issuing some queries to officers, which will probably be Mark, to just make sure that we can get that work progressed and completed as soon as possible. Moving on to the reviews from the partner organisations. Now, the ICE features very much in the work that internal audit does across its various clients. So the NHS Forth Valley ICE report that was issued in January and considered at the January audit committee at NHS Forth Valley. The report provided reasonable assurance and noted 12 recommendations, all about improving governance and building on work that was already undertaken. Some of the key themes and issues from this report are noted in Appendix 2 of the progress report before you today, including a couple of recommendations that are of particular relevance to the IGB. And looking at the IGB's risk register earlier on, you can see a sort of crossover between your own risks and some of those audit findings within the NHS Forth Valley Internal Control Evaluation Report. So moving on to the Falkirk Council audits, there's two reports, one related to sickness absence and the other one related to the use of purchase cards. Sickness absence report provided substantial assurance for 2 areas and limited assurance on compliance with policies at service level. And then the purchase card, it was substantial assurance for the report overall. So to sort of conclude on that small part of what we're talking about, the committee is asked to note progress in terms of the internal audit plans and to note the summaries of the relevant reports from partner bodies. And again, happy to take any questions if committee members have any.
Okay, thanks again, Anne-Marie. Looks very clear. Does anyone have questions or comments? We're happy then to note progress. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us then to item 7. I think it's back to yourself, Mark.
It is indeed. Thank you. So again, the National Audit Report and Inspection Overview. The Audit Committee is asked to consider and comment on the content of the report. You have the report in front of you. You've had it. So what I'll do is I will just run through a few of what I think are the salient points to bring them out. And so there are 8 reports since the previous Audit Committee. And I'll just kind of comment on each. There is a commentary on the key ones, and there are 3. There's 5 reports that there's a commentary on, and there are 3 that are that will go to the clinical committee. The first one is a report on Falkirk Council Pension Fund. The commentary highlights that the pension fund is in a very strong financial position, one of only 3 that are in particularly good position. The impact is that there is a benefit to the IGB's financial position assumed into the position, and that's based on the fact that there will be reduced pension payments made to the fund. That's been included for the period 2024-25, i.e. the year coming just from the 1st of April through for the next 3 years, and then there is a very slight increase in the pension payments thereafter. But the pension funds are reviewed on a 3-year cycle. The second report I'll comment on is a report on the audit of NHS Forth Valley for the year ended the 31st of March 2023. The report highlights the escalation to stage 4 of NHS Forth Valley, but it also highlights the fact that NHS Forth Valley financially balanced in the year. In fact, it had a very small underspend of 200,000. It's balanced, but the report highlights the very challenging times ahead. I don't think that would come as any surprise to anyone. It highlights the fact that it has balanced based on a significant amount of non-recurring solutions, 20 million at least, and that therefore, by the very nature, there will be a significant difficulty in balancing the position for 24-25, i.e. the coming year. It's also worth highlighting that whilst it's a very challenging position financially, I don't think that there are any health boards throughout the country where there is not that same financial challenge. So it's also important to put that in context. I'll move on to the report on sustainability of social care. Again, somewhat consistent theme. The report highlights the challenges of local authorities meeting the demands of an ageing population who have increasingly complex needs, and therefore there's a challenge in respect of both financial resources, but also the availability of physical resources to be able to support those the needs of the population. The report does deal with the additional challenges of meeting the needs of people in remote, rural and island communities, and that the local authorities will have to take very difficult decisions. And the report actually highlights, and I have included it in this particular report, some of the discussions that will need to be taken between the council and the population at large. So again, it's a difficult environment in which all parties are working. Moving on to the next report, report on local government in Scotland financial bulletin. Well, this actually mirrors part of the challenge that I've just referred to in the last report, the financial challenges facing councils, and in fact, I think it's fair to say all public sector bodies, and the need to take hard decisions. The reality is that per the report, there has been, although an increase in absolute terms, in terms of finances, there has been a reduction in real terms, and that's when you do an offset in respect of the inflation impact. The report actually shows, in summary, the increases in real, or in absolute financial terms across a range of public sector organisations, including both the NHS and the local authorities. And you'll be able to see that in relative terms, the increase to the local authorities is quite a small one by comparison with some of the other areas. So that I've got that in kind of bullet points in the section. And if I can turn to the report which sets out the report on how the Accounts Commission holds local government to account. This is effectively a summary of the national auditing governance structure, which identifies what the role and remit of the Auditor General is, and the role and remit of the Accounts Commission. So the Auditor General, the Accounts Commission deals with local authority or local government, and the Auditor General deals with all the other public bodies, and supporting them in terms of the audit process is Audit Scotland, who do the actual work or they subcontract the work for the auditing on the various bodies. The other three reports, as I said, are included in the audit report, and they cover the reports that will actually be reported to the Clinical and Care Governance Committee later in the year. So again, just to conclude, the Audit Committee is asked to consider and comment on the content of the report. I've tried to summarise my report here as much as possible, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Mark. Yeah, there are some very sobering reads within that, and I think we all know the general position in public finances right now. And as you say, every NHS board is going through an incredibly different settlement at the moment. In fact, I think 4 or 5 boards are only going to break even this year on the basis of loans from government to cover shortfalls, which we've not had to do as yet in Forth Valley. But next year is looking increasingly challenging, and frankly, it doesn't get any better in the couple of years after that either. And obviously, the IGB being funded through council and health board, both of which financial difficulties, then that obviously pushes the problem on as well, doesn't it? So there are some very difficult decisions going to have to be taken over the next month or so. Anyone else have comments or questions?
Yep.
Councillor Flynn.
Yep, thank you. Just really touching on 4.4, I do fully understand the challenges of recruiting people, particularly in the care sector. I just wonder, because normally when people look for jobs, it's on the usual Indeed jobs and internal, etc. And these sites, I find personally looking at them, are quite boring, not attractive to attract people. Are there any innovative ideas coming through to try and attract care workers? I'm thinking about maybe small roadshows, or even there must be lots of care workers that are currently, you know, happy in their job. Maybe a small incentive for them to recommend a friend or something, you know, maybe 20, 50 pounds to recommend a friend to get a job. I think it's all about triggering, you know, people to come into the care profession.
I see Patricia has her hand up actually, although the report does highlight some of the points that you've just, maybe not the financial incentive, but
No.
the report does actually highlight some of the innovative ways, but
Right.
I'll allow,
Yeah.
please, Patricia, I'm sorry that I perhaps jumped in there.
No,
Fine,
thank
on you
you.
go, Patricia.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We have been doing a whole range of activities across Falkirk, putting quite significant effort into this, having very localised roadshows, doing work with the college and school leavers, as well as a concerted multimedia campaign and local media campaign. It has delivered some success, but unfortunately it's just about balancing the number of people that are leaving and the number of people that are joining. So it's a continued focus of effort for us, but it does reflect the challenge that there is across the whole system, where you're competing with the likes of Aldi and Lidl, where people don't need to be registered, they don't need to have the qualifications that we require, and they're getting paid sometimes more with shift allowances, etc. So it's a national issue, and one that certainly I think it was the ambition that the National Care Service would address, but we'll need to see what comes out of the legislative process in that regard. Thanks.
Yeah, I do know it's a challenge, although I can speak not for myself personally with Aldi and Lidl. People don't survive very long because they may pay more, but they're expected to work almost 24 hours a day, you know, which is that. But no, thank you very much, Patricia, for that. That's a good update. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions then? Nope. Happy to note the report.
Yep.
Okay, final item then is the governance statement improvement actions. Mark.
It is. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So the governance statement, improvement actions. Again, the Audit Committee is asked to note the progress report on the improvement actions. So you have the report again. I'll run through a brief commentary on it. The very first point that was asked by Robert Clark was on the integration scheme. So I would have given you a kind of brief commentary on that there has been progress with the integration scheme, and the chief executives have met, and there's I think there's a clear desire. Chief officers and chief executives have met, and I think there's a clear desire to make progress. The external facilitator has been identified and engaged, and actually there's some detail included in Appendix 1. There's quite a bit of narrative in there, which details some of the points that are being addressed. The second point that's included in the previous report was the Audit Committee self-assessment against good practice principles. That self-assessment has been done and is in the process of being implemented. It's part of the internal audit plan. Sorry, that wasn't the most elegant way that I could have put that, but hopefully you follow what I mean. And the other internal and external audit reviews. These are regular quarterly reports that will be provided to the audit committee, and I think some of them are included in the actual report. I'm happy to take. I know that's rather brief, but it is it's a kind of there's an extensive commentary included in the governance statement in the Appendix 1. But I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is a regular update report, so we've been following many of these items across the quarters as progress is being made. I see there's no target date in for number 1. Perhaps next time around, when that work is getting going, we can have a target date along the lines that Patricia mentioned earlier. The resilience and business continuity at the bottom of page 67 is RAG rated at red. I presume because there are still revised dates to be agreed on that, and it is running behind schedule.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm as I say, I'm happy to go through the point in more detail. You know, the medical, with regards to integration, the medical staffing budget transfers have taken place, but there's still a bit of work outstanding on that. The primary operational management of primary care has transferred. We've got the head of primary care has been appointed. The corporate support arrangements are still part of the current review. The chief finance officers have prepared as much as possible the financial component of the integration scheme, but it can't, you know, it needs to go to the chief executives, chief officers, and the head of governance for Falkirk Council is actually supporting the process. And I think I referred to the senior management team has reviewed the self-assessment against the ministerial strategy group paper that came out in July 2019. So hopefully that gives you a bit more comfort. But as I said, that is included in the papers. I mean, I appreciate that this is a single meeting, but if someone has a particular question, then and think of it later on, then I'm still here, and I'm happy to take a question. But yeah,
that's useful. Thank you, Mark. Robert.
Yeah, it's just in item 3 in the report, the external audit report. There's a lot of due on the 31st of March, and I'm conscious about capacity, and I'm just making sure that the well-being of staff is being adhered to as well. Will we still be on track for that, or do we have to put some of those dates back?
I think it will be subject to review. I think the March date was probably put in some time ago. There have been a number of changes since. Your point about the well-being of staff is absolutely taken on board. I think I would like to think that everybody on the call is conscious of that particular issue, and that will be reviewed. And if there are changes, then they will be articulated to members.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We're happy to note that report. Okay, is there any other business to raise today? Patricia?
Yep, firstly, it's just to acknowledge Mark's ongoing support for us in the interim Chief Finance Officer role, but also to just notify the committee that following a recruitment process, there's been an appointment to the Chief Finance Officer role, and it's Marie Kears who will be joining us from Inverclyde Health and Social Care Partnership. So she's due to start at the end of May. So it's just to keep members of the Audit Committee appraised of that. And I'm delighted that NHS Forth Valley and Mark are continued to support us with the interim role at the moment. And I know Mark's jumped in at a really critical point in the financial year. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, the next few months, bridging the end of one financial year and the start of the next one, I'm sure is always the worst time of year for people in finance. So thank you, Mark.
Lucky white heather.
Okay, if there's no other business, then I'll thank everyone for the contributions and close the meeting. Patricia, sorry.
To indulge me, this is my last audit committee, so I'd just like to thank all the members of the committee and the auditors for their support over the years and helping us run what I think has been quite an efficient audit committee process. So thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you for all your contributions, Patricia. I'm sure we'll have a chance to formally say goodbye to you at another stage. David?
I think that was an involuntary connection.
Pressing the wrong button. Okay, I think that's us finished now. Thanks very much, everyone. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, how do you do?
I've said
Yeah,
that
that's
a few
right.
times, and you raised a lot of questions at full council.